What's up, everyone? Today is April 5th of 2024, and in today's video, we're going to talk about the riddles underneath the news story of the death of former NFL player Mike Kolen. Kolen was a member of the undefeated Dolphins Super Bowl team from the early 70s. And the Dolphins, in 1972 to 1973, completed the first and only ever perfect NFL season. In the description below, you'll find a video I made in 2020 on the death of Dolphins coach Don Shula, who led the team to that perfect record. And today's story is completely connected to the death of Don Shula from 2020. What we'll also examine in this video is that Kolen was best known during his career for his involvement in a play called the Sea of Hands, which is the play that eliminated the Dolphins from the 1974 playoffs, ending their reign of dominance over the AFC. It was the first time they got beat in the AFC playoffs in 4 years. And this is one of those NFL plays that has its own Wikipedia page, and it's called a miraculous play. In fact, just a couple months ago, I did another decode on a miraculous play when Frank Wycheck passed away. And Wycheck was best known for his career for that Music City Miracle play. And when it comes to miracles and perfection, there's always a riddle connected to Jesus Christ. And when we look at the Sea of Hands, we're going to focus on how this is a riddle connected to Jesus walking on water on the Sea of Galilee, as told in the New Testament. But before we get there, let's quickly tap into some of the numbers that are so important here. On this channel, we talk about numerology with a strong emphasis on Gematria, the numeric underbelly of the English language. And in the alphabetic order, the name Don Shula has a value of 94, which is one of the main numbers I talked about in my video from a few years ago, because Don Shula died at the age of exactly 90 years and 4 months old. Well, now, Don Shula, if he were still alive, would be 94 years old. And his former player, Mike Kolen, died on the 94th day of the year, April 3rd. Of course, 2024, a leap year. Kolen lived in the city of Birmingham, Alabama. And in ordinal, the city of Birmingham sums to 94 as well. And I thought it was interesting because the Sea of Hands play, where the Raiders beat the Dolphins, the quarterback who threw that pass, Ken Stabler, notice how his Wikipedia page has Birmingham listed right behind his head. Maybe that's a coincidence, but we're definitely going to show you some things that aren't. In Latin Gematria, Birmingham, Alabama sums to 272. And Latin Gematria is what I consider to be the most significant cipher in this study. And it's one that's also called Agrippa's Key. And notice how Birmingham, Alabama sums to 272. Well, Kolen's death on April 3rd also leaves 272 days in the year. We're also going to talk about his nickname, Captain Crunch. Captain Crunch equals 272 with capital letters. But I want to talk about this name, Mike Kolen, and how strange this is. Now, several months ago, I did a decode on Dick Butkus, which is another very bizarre NFL name, and one that we used to have a lot of fun with as kids, and let's face it, as adults too. But this name, Mike Kolen, I feel like this is a name that someone like Bart Simpson might really like. You know, I could see it now. Bart Simpson dialing up Moe's Tavern, asking for Mike Kolen, right? And then Moe puts the phone down and says, "Hey, I'm looking for Mike Kolen." Has anyone seen Mike Kolen? Right? And then it goes back and everyone laughs, has a good time about it. Well, believe it or not, that's actually part of this riddle. In standard English Gematria, one of the two extended methods I teach along with Latin, using this method, the phrase my colon sums to 943. This is the same Gematria as Las Vegas Raiders, the team that the Dolphins lost to. Of course, they've since moved to Las Vegas. But this number 943, notice how Mike Kolen was born exactly 943 weeks after Don Shula. And when Mike Kolen died, Don Shula would have been exactly 94 years and 3 months old. Again, I ask, what are the odds? Furthermore, when you write out the number 943, it sums to 311. Kolen's birthday was the 31st of January, which can be written 31/1. And his death fell exactly 3 years, 11 months after Don Shula's. Shula died 311 days after the birthday of Clarence Davis. Clarence Davis was the man who caught the sea of hands winning touchdown that knocked Kolen and the Dolphins out of the 74 playoffs. Also notice how Mike Kolen died 1,430 days after Don Shula. This is the next big number of this story. Because not only do we have those digits, 1430, but on the date of the Sea of Hands play, Mike Kolen was exactly 1,403 weeks old. And in Latin Gematria, hands sums to 143. The Sea of Hands play was also 14 years and 3 months after the Raiders' first game on September 11th of 1960. We'll talk about that date a little bit later. And as far as the number 143, check out the alphabetic order where the phrase walk on water sums to 143. Again, Jesus walking on water, one of the miracles he performed. The Sea of Hands considered a miraculous play in NFL lore. When Jesus walked on water, he did so on the Sea of Galilee, which has reduction gematria of 52. The reduction or Pythagorean method of gematria reduces every double-digit number to a single digit prior to adding it to the equation. Well, notice how the two teams involved in the play, Dolphins and Raiders, both share 52 gematria with Sea of Hands. Kolen's nickname, Captain Crunch, is a lot like a cereal, Captain Crunch 52, but notice how Captain Crunch died 52 days after the Super Bowl in Las Vegas, and the name Mike Kolen in standard gematria sums to the 52nd prime number, 239. Now again, this year's Super Bowl was held in Las Vegas, which is where the Raiders moved to back in the year 2020, just before Don Shula died. So let's talk about how this all syncs back to Jesus Christ, as many of these riddles do. The Sea of Hands play happened right before Christmas in the year 74. Well, the number 74 is very significant to Jesus Christ, which sums to 74. Jesus, killing, cross, Messiah, gospel, all 74 in the alphabetic order. Also in ordinal, Raiders equals 74, and the head coach of the Raiders at the time was John Earl Madden, who we'll talk about as well. John Earl Madden equals 74, and they defeated the Miami Dolphins, 74, coached by Shula, which equals 74. Well, now, John Michael Kolen, his full name, which sums to 74, died a span of 7 weeks and 4 days after the Super Bowl in Las Vegas. Clarence Davis, the man who caught the Sea of Hands pass, is currently 74 years old. And notice how Clarence Davis was born a span of 515 days after Kolen. In standard, the name Jesus sums to 515. But what about the date that Kolen passed away? April 3rd, or 4-3 on the calendar. In Pythagorean Gematria, Jesus Christ sums to 43. So does Dolphins. In fact, Miami Dolphins equals 430. Both John Madden and Las Vegas, Nevada equals 4-3, matching the date Kolen died. And many Christians, going back many centuries, believe that Jesus Christ was actually crucified on April 3rd, or 4-3. It was likely the year 33 AD that was attributed, as Jesus would have been 33 years old. Both crucifixion of Jesus Christ and Lord and Savior Jesus Christ equals 303. Mike Kolen died 303 days before his next birthday. His death date of April 3rd, that's normally the 93rd day of the year. God's Son crucifix in Nazareth, all 93. But notice how Christianity sums to 930. His full name, John Michael Kolen, also sums to 930. This using the Sumerian form of Gematria, which maintains the alphabetic order, but multiplies everything by 6. And let's talk about this other number, 155, right? This is the ordinal value of both Christianity and John Michael Kolen. The word killing gives us standard Gematria of 155. And this stood out because John Madden would currently be 1,055 months old. Kolen played for the Miami Dolphins, whose head coach, Mike McDaniel, is, I believe, the only graduate of Yale University to ever become a head coach in NFL history. And you may remember a fan was shot and killed outside the Dolphins Stadium in their last game of the season. I did a video on that. Big skull and bones riddle. Yale Skull and Bones has been the repetitive riddle on this channel for the last year that I've just can't seem to stop talking about. And check out how old Mike McDaniel was when Mike Kolen died. 15,005 days, matching his full name, 155. Furthermore, Kolen's death fell 155 days before the start of the NFL season. It'll be the 105th season in NFL history, and Kolen died 105 days after the anniversary of the Sea of Hands play. But check out this connection to John Madden. Once again, Madden, one of the first coaches of the Raiders, and the man who led the franchise to their first ever Super Bowl championship. A man who is now essentially synonymous with American football, as all the video games don his name. Well, notice how the name Mike Kolen equals 888 in reverse Sumerian. Kolen died a span of 8 days before John Madden's 88th birthday. And not only does John Earl Madden equal 888 Latin, but John Madden and Las Vegas Raiders both equal 88. And just think about this, right? Mike Kolen's real first name was John. A lot like John Madden. No Jonathans here, just Johns. And of course, we're talking about Mike Kolen sitting on the John. I mean, these riddles are weird. But the name John equals 47 in ordinal. And think about how it was John the Revelator who told of Jesus' return, Jesus baptized by John the Baptist. Well, Mike Kolen died a span of exactly 47 months after Don Shula. Both Raiders and John Madden summed to 47. And this whole sea of hands thing, it kind of reminded me of another famous NFL play, the Immaculate Reception. You know, the Raiders were involved in that game too. Well, the man who caught this pass, Franco Harris, died exactly 470 days before Mike Kolen. If we were to use capital letters, this cipher capitals mixed, it's still the alphabetic order, but with capital and small letters mixed in. It's a little early. My coffee hasn't kicked in yet. Sea of Hands sums to 182. And Mike Kolen died 18,002 days after the play. The name John Madden equals 182. Well, the name John Earl Madden in ordinal sums to 124. And Mike Kolen died 1 month and 24 days after the Super Bowl in Las Vegas. In reverse gematria, notice how Jesus the Messiah sums to 224, and this is a very relevant phrase, as this phrase sums to 1331 in Latin, and if you check my channel recently, you may notice that I've done several videos on the number 1331, particularly with Kate Middleton. It's the number on the thumbnail for those videos. Well, in ordinal, Jesus the Messiah equals 181. Kolen died 18,001 days after the Sea of Hands play. And his coach's name, Donald Francis Shula, equals 181 ordinal. His death was also 118 weeks and 1 day after John Madden died in December of 2021. Earlier, we talked about this 943 riddle. Well, notice how Jesus the Messiah has matching gematria with 943. So the Sea of Hands reception was a pass caught by Clarence Davis that was thrown by quarterback Ken Stabler. And real quick, I want to talk about the numbers with these two because it's pretty interesting. Notice how Mike Kolen died 8 years, 270 days after Ken Stabler. He also died 827 days after John Madden, the same 3 digits. Well, 827 is the 144th prime number. And in the other capital letter cipher, capitals added, Sea of Hands sums to 144. Ken Stabler was born on Christmas Day, the day that we celebrate the birthday of Jesus. And notice how both his first and last names, Kenneth and Stabler, both sum to 77 and 32, just like Christ. Jesus equals 29, while Christ and Jesus Christ both equal 290. Well, the Sea of Hands play was just 4 days before Ken Stabler turned 29 years old. Meanwhile, the other player who caught the pass, Clarence Eugene Davis, his name has double gematria of 173 in ordinal and standard. The phrase walking on water also sums to 173. And the number 173 upside down is Eli, which is what Jesus yells while hanging on the cross during the crucifixion. There's another interesting alignment with these numbers because notice how 1031 has gematria of 173. And it just so happens that 1031 is the 173rd prime number. Is it just me or are the fonts looking strange? Anyway, The number 131, important because crucifixion equals 131. The same digits as 1031. And Mike Kolen was born on January 31st, or 131. And his nickname was Captain Crunch? Really? Captain Crunch, 131 in the alphabetic order. Finally, before I end this video, no riddle over the past year is complete without a skull and crossbones riddle. And that's definitely the case here. Of course, Las Vegas, Nevada sums to 223 in Hebrew Gematria. This is also the ordinal sum of skull and crossbones, 223. And consider how 322 is the number on the emblem of skull and bones. Well, think about how big of a year 2023 was to Las Vegas. All four major sports. In hockey, Las Vegas won its first major sports championship. In basketball, Las Vegas hosted the finals of the first ever in-season tournament. In baseball, the Oakland A's announced their intent to move to Las Vegas. And in football, Las Vegas hosted the Super Bowl that ended the 2023 season. So it's all about Vegas this year, the 322 code. Well, check out how Mike Kolen was 322 months old for the Sea of Hands play in 74. 74 is the reduction value of Skull and Bones Society, which shares all sorts of numbers with Raiders and Las Vegas Raiders, as well as John Earl Madden. The only number that Raiders doesn't share with Skull and Bones Society is 295. The numbers 223 and 322 both equal 295. Also notice how Sea of Hands equals 295 in Latin. Mike died at the age of 76 years old. Human sacrifice and blood sacrifice equals 76. But notice how his nickname, Captain Crunch, has matching 76 and 59 gematria with skull and bones. Also in Latin, the word kill has this 59. Kolen, living in Birmingham, which is where I think he passed away, Birmingham has the 59 as well. Kolen died 277 days before Shula's birthday. His full name, John Michael Kolen, 277 in reverse. Well, that's the 59th prime number. And if you check out his age on the date of the Super Bowl, 27,770 days old. Very similar digits. So now we have the Raiders, who perhaps are the most obvious skull and bones team in the NFL, as you can tell by their logo. Of course, the Buccaneers are another big one, but the Raiders as well. And this is all exhibited through John Madden, too. Notice how Madden was born on April 10th, or 410. The name Madden equals 41, the same digits in ordinal. 41 is also the reductions value of Skull and Bones 41. And think about how a member of Skull and Bones, George W. Bush, was the president during the 9/11 attacks in 2001, the same year he took office. Well, September 11th had numerology of 41. And if you go backwards, exactly 41 years before the 9/11 attacks, you get the Oakland Raiders' first ever game against the Houston Oilers. And Houston is, of course, the city that George Bush's father, George H.W. Bush, I think he died in Houston. Yeah, died in Houston, Texas, where he and his family lived. So let's think about the digits 9/11 and how significant they are to the Raiders. Now, the Raiders won their first Super Bowl with John Madden in Super Bowl IX. I'm sorry, Super Bowl 11. My bad. And oh, I'm screwing this up. Super Bowl 11. Let's do this, Derek. Super Bowl 11 was the earliest Super Bowl to ever be played on the calendar. And it was on the 9th day of the year. So on the 9th day, they played the 11th Super Bowl. That Super Bowl was 9,011 days before the 9/11 attacks. The Raiders' first ever championship. And remember, September 11th, the date that many people believe Jesus was truly born on. The phrase ritual human sacrifice 9/11. The date 9/11 falls under the sign of Virgo. And the first day of Virgo is typically August 23rd or 8/23. Well, notice how the name John Kolen equals 8/23. And when he died, he was a span of 27,823 days old. Finally, back to the Dolphins, Mike Kolen's old team. Once again, their current head coach, Mike McDaniel, is the only coach to ever graduate from Yale University. Mike McDaniel is the 13th coach in the history of the team. And think about how the letter M is the 13th letter, MM, Mike McDaniel. The Dolphins equals 130. And I did a post back on this in the number 13. Miami and the Dolphins, a lot of 13 synchronicities. Well, Skull and Bones equals 130 with the ampersand. And when Mike McDaniel first entered the NFL, it was in 2005 at the age of 22. Well, notice how Yale University equals 205, while the Brotherhood of Death equals 220. Skull and Bones also equals 202. National Football League with 22 players on the field for every play, summing to 220. Don't forget, the father of American football is known as Walter Camp, who attended Yale and I believe was a member of Skull and Bones. Well, on the date of the 9/11 attacks, measuring from that date to the death of Mike Kolen is 22 years, 205 days. And his nickname, Captain Crunch, also with this 220. Finally, the Brotherhood of Death equals 2082. Yale University celebrates its anniversary on the 282nd day of the year. Well, the 282nd prime number is 1831. And this is interesting because Skull and Bones was founded just 1 year later, 1832. Mike McDaniel was born 1,831 weeks after Kolen, or the first day of the 1,832nd week. Mike McDaniel was born in the year 83. Yale University, summing to 83. And when Yale had its extremely special anniversary last year, Mike McDaniel was 40 years and 31 weeks old. And of course, 431, the 83rd prime number. All right, guys, that'll do it for this video. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Whether you're watching live or archived, please do help that race to 20,000 subscribers. Looking forward to seeing that number under the channel. All right, everyone, we'll talk to you next time. See ya.